an original MCM production.
Good morning. I'm going to call the Operations Committee to order. Would the Secretary please record the roll?
Commissioner Bohl?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson is expected. Commissioner Martinsek? Here. Commissioner Swan?
Here.
Commissioner Krieger?
Here.
Commissioner Hermes?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is approval of proceedings from the regular committee meeting held April 10th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bohl and seconded by Commissioner Martinsek. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Is there anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. I'll move on to the organization administration report. Kevin?
We do have the Green Luminary Award that Karen Sands is going to present today. I'll turn it over to Karen.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Karen Sands, Director of Planning, Research, and Sustainability here at the District. Unfortunately, the award recipients could not be here today, but this month's award goes to Alice's Garden Urban Farm at 20th and West Garfield Avenue. We have a little video we'll show you.
And with Alice's Community Garden Urban Farm. We grow a lot of food, regular potatoes, all sorts of herbs, tomatoes, peppers of all sorts. Venus Williams is our executive director, but she's also an expert in herbs, and she makes herbal products from the herbs that we grow in the gardens. And we have about 100 plots where people, families, individuals, groups come together and garden. We absorb a lot of water right here through our gardens. One of our values is to care for the earth here. We honor the earth, and we want to conserve water. We want to take care of water. We want to be part of protecting water. We've been working for 3 years to develop a design for green infrastructure harvesting rainwater. We want to harvest the rainwater off of the Brown Street Academy play lot, go through a bioswell. The bioswell will filter the water. It'll go into a cistern. And it'll be pumped out by a solar pump. We expect that every rainfall we'll be able to harvest 24,000 gallons of water. Green infrastructure is simply preparing our land to receive water. Cleanse the water, to keep the water where it falls instead of it running off of concrete and streets and making it harder to keep it clean. So this is a sanctuary in a sense, a safe place for people to come and to build community. So people come here to develop relationships with people they wouldn't normally meet. Everyone's welcome to come to Alice's Garden.
So as you saw in the video, there are extensive urban gardens here, over 100, healing garden, lots of programming as well that goes along with it. In the future, they'll add the bioswales and a cistern with a solar pump that will collect water from the Brown Street Academy site. The garden was named after Alice Mead Taylor, and the site itself is quite a success story. It was cleared for the Park East Freeway right-of-way, but the success story is how it was really returned back to the neighborhood in the form of urban gardens. It's named after a late executive director of UW Extension. And beyond just the stormwater connection, it's about building relationships over, whether it's urban agriculture, over water, and with each other. It's a real successful urban resilience model. And so we thought even though all of the green infrastructure isn't yet constructed, it was certainly worth honoring this May. Great. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Sure.
And congratulations to Alice's Garden.
Give my hand, just even though they're not here. Thanks, Karen.
All right, anything else, Kevin?
Just will note the commission awards for this month. We do have a really low SWMBE participation. We're working to bring that up. Still for the year, we're very close to the 20% goal. And that's it for the executive director's report.
There was a report on our desks about that particular issue.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, then we'll move into new business. Item 1 is file number 17-043-5, and I'll refer to Mike so I don't repeat, or we don't repeat ourselves reading the whole thing.
Sure. Thanks. Mike Martin, Director of Technical Services. First request, the Commission has requested to award and to direct the Executive Director to execute on behalf of the District Contract J04040C01 Jones Island Dewatering and Drying Building Freight and Passenger Elevators Modernization to Mid-America Elevator Company Incorporated in the amount of $2,198,856. Further, the Commission has requested to increase the total project cost for Project J04040 Jones Island Dewatering and Drying Building Freight and Passenger Elevators Modernization by $70,301 for an amended total project cost of $2,680,732, and to make a corresponding change to the total project cost for Project M9901 Allowance for Costs and Schedule Changes. Provide some background on this requested contract. So this facility is, the elevators are part of the drying and dewatering, or dewatering and drying facility, which has been in service since 1994. It's multiple floors. It's actually, it's got 8 floors on it, so we have to move material up and down, people up and down inside the building for continued operation. There's 2 elevators in there. There's a passenger elevator that serves 8 floors, and then a freight elevator serves 7 floors. And both of those elevators that are functioning today are original to the building, so they're 20 plus years old. We've had numerous issues over the last several years, pretty frequent repairs and servicing due to equipment failures. They're all age-related. Elevator interruption causes production downtime, so if the elevator's down, they can't get up and do work that's necessary. Could also be a safety hazard. Occasionally we'll get some staff who are detained in a stopped elevator where they're not able to get out temporarily. Pictures, the dewatering and drying facility. And just some pictures of the elevators. They're pretty standard looking elevators from the outside, but there's mechanical equipment related that needs refurbishing. So the purpose of this project is to extend the service life of the elevators, reduce elevator downtime, and its result in inefficient operations, and ensure safe operation. The scope is basically, it's a rehab of all the equipment. So we have all the equipment there. It'll replace, refurbish, or rehabilitate the equipment, all the electrical and mechanical equipment, and also the elevator cars itself, and bring it up to current codes and so on. Project, the bid came in a little higher than budgeted by about $70,000. The duration is a little over a year, and for 2 elevators, Veolia Water will make a $20,000 contribution towards the cost of this project. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure.
Commissioner Bohl.
Thank you. Mike, the bid receiving only 1 response,
Yeah.
did that strike administration as
Yeah,
a little low?
Yes, we were concerned about that. When we originally bid this project, we had 3 bidders who were interested, and up until a week prior to the bid, we had 3 bidders. The first one dropped out. I can't recall exactly why they dropped out. Then the second one, the day before, they indicated that they were too dropping out. They apparently were going to have to buy a lot of the equipment from the low bidder, so they didn't feel that they were going to have a competitive bid situation. So, again, up to a week before, we thought we were going to have 3 bidders for this project, and because of for a couple of reasons, the 2 other bidders bid out. It's specialized work. First of all, there aren't a lot of elevator companies in the general region, so that it's a fairly limited pool to begin with. So
I wasn't expecting a huge pool with
Right.
a dozen, but
yeah,
to not see any competition,
we were
or at least more
disappointed.
than 1 bid, probably is a reason. I wouldn't be surprised if through discussions, the company here that got our bid wasn't cognizant of the other not making a submission or a request for various parts and materials as well, too, that maybe they had the inside track. Okay, thank you.
Mike, I have one question too. During the course of the rehab or construction, how are things going to get moved around, I guess, would be my question.
Be a challenge. Sure, they'll keep one in operation, so they'll work on the other one, so that they'll always have one in operation.
So they'll use the passenger elevator for the
While they're
freight
working on the freight, right.
while it's
Yep.
down, and et cetera. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Martinsek.
I noticed the MBE and WBE, again, we're looking at Butler and West Bend, and this is like electrical and HVAC. Can you just remind me what we're doing with our primes to make them aware of capable SWMB firms in our district versus in Butler and West Bend?
Jeff will talk to that.
Good morning, Jeff Spence, Director of Community Outreach and Business Engagement. So there are a number of things that we do throughout the year to unite small women, minority-owned firms with primes. Start out with the meetings that we have with contractors and consultants. We intentionally try to bring our small firms in with those folks and give an overview of all projects that we believe are going to come forward in the beginning of the year. We try to create conversation there.
And I don't mean to interrupt, because this, I'm a little more specifically talking
Yes.
about Mid-America Elevator in Chicago. Were they, I mean, they're the low bidder, were they aware of electrical and HV? What did we do with this
Yes.
project?
So beyond that, what we do for our pre-bid meetings is we send out notices to all of our SWMB firms as well, the electrical firms, any firm that can do this type of work, any work that's associated with this type of work. We offer the opportunity for the primes to come in and have discussions with us on SWMB firms if they're having issues engaging firms.
Did
in the
Mid-America
area.
do that?
Yes. Yes. So on this particular project, there was a lot of engagement with those firms we believed had capacity to prime this work. What Mike didn't bring up is we actually extended this bid to try to ensure that we got more participation relative to bidders and to subcontractors. So there's a lot of work done on this to try to increase the number of firms that would be bidding on this and get those SWMB numbers up.
And
Right.
I appreciate all you do in general, but I'm going to be asking this question on every individual contract that comes forward in hopes that we can start getting the message. I recognize this is a single bidder. We don't have a lot of leverage, but I hope people start hearing that we care about firms and employees that reside in the district and that are, paying the freight for a lot of the work that we're doing, and that we'd love to see a little bit more representation in those communities on prime bids. So thank you for your response. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comment? Not, the motion would be in order. Or didn't we already have a motion? No? Okay.
Approval.
Move for approval by Commissioner Bowl,
Second.
second by Commissioner Swan. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, file number 17-044-5, which is an award of contract again.
Commissioners requested to award and to direct the Executive Director to execute on behalf of the district contract J04051C01 Jones Island Water Reclamation Facility Main Recycle Air Belt Feed Screw Replacement Project to JF Ahern in the amount of $335,000. Further, the Commission is requesting to decrease the total project cost for project J04051 Jones Island Water Reclamation Facility Main Recycle Air Belt Feed Screw Replacement Project by $112,325 for an amended total project cost of $670,103, and to make a corresponding change to the total project cost for project M99001 allowance for cost and schedule changes. Again, this is the D&D facility. Within the D&D facility, we have 12 dryers that heat dry biosolids that produce milorganite. And within that facility, those dried biosolids are transported from dryers to other processes within by a whole series of conveyors. We have over 100 conveyors within that system. Many of these conveyors, we've been to the Commission multiple times over the past year and a half or so regarding conveyors. They're experiencing wear. They end up breaking down, causing some reduced outage time, either temporarily or longer term as we go through milorganite or produce milorganite. So we've been through a whole series of projects. This is another one of those. This is specifically the main recycle air belt feed screw conveyor. There are 3 of those conveyors within the D&D building. There's a north side, a south side, then one that's redundant and serves both sides. Those conveyors were installed in 1999, excessive wear, and they're needing replaced at this time. The D&D building, the conveyors themselves, it's that tube, and so within that there's a device. It's a very large diameter screw, and as it rotates, it moves the material through. So with milorganite, as it's being produced, it's very abrasive, and so the metal wears out. Erodes the metal and erodes both on the conveyor and also the screw itself. There's an inlet and an outlet to the screw conveyors. There's also on the conveyors, it's under a vacuum, so it pulls dust off the conveyors, and those also can wear over time. So under the scope of this proposed contract, we're replacing those conveyors. We also are equipping them so that they have an explosion relief venting. A dusty environment has an increased risk of an increased risk of explosion, and so the deflagration venting allows, if there were an explosion, for it to be vented in a safe manner. Then there's also the some other miscellaneous electrical and mechanical work associated with this contract. The bid came in less than budgeted. We're thus requesting to decrease the total project cost by $112,000. VLA's contribution on this contract is $30,000, and it's about a year-long project. Answer any questions?
Questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Move approval.
By Commissioner Bowl,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hermes. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Move on to item 3, which is file number 17-045-5, and this is a modification to a contract.
The Commission has requested to authorize the Executive Director to execute modification number 2 to contract S04025C01 South Shore Water Reclamation Facility Hot Water Boiler Control System Improvements with Next Electric Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $3,018, and to restore the Executive Director's authority for approving future modifications. Further, the Commission has requested to increase the total project cost for project S04025 South Shore Water Reclamation Facility Hot Water Boiler Control System Improvements by $52,898, and a total project cost of $650,922, and to make a corresponding change to the total project cost for project M99001 allowance for cost and schedule changes. So at South Shore, we have a number of hot water boilers. They are used primarily to heat sludge, which provides then the proper temperature of the sludge for sludge digestion. Sludge digestion is important as it reduces the volume of sludge, and then it also creates digester gas, which we then use to heat buildings at South Shore. The hot water also provides building heat during the winter time. So we had a contract in place that was awarded by the commission in July to Next Electric for upgrades to these boilers. It upgrades boilers number 3 and 4 to improve their reliability. There's the building in which these boilers are located. Typical boiler, just note that within a boiler, the water passes through this area, through these tubes that are within the boiler, and then there's it's called the firebox where the flame actually comes out. So that's how the water gets heated up. So the original scope of work had basically an upgrade of the existing equipment, all the fuel trains, the burner and blowers, and instrumentation. Just some pictures of the equipment as it sat there before we started the improvements. There's control panels. So as the contractor began working, one of the 2 boilers, as they opened it up, they discovered that the firebox, the open area, was flooded with water. It's supposed to not have any water in it. Should be dry to operate, and if we installed new equipment under that existing condition, it would void the warranty for the upgrades. So we discovered that those boiler tubes were leaking. If you notice, there's where all the water goes through. Those were leaking. And as we inspected them, we determined that those boiler tubes should be replaced in full. There are several hundred of those tubes. There's a picture of the firebox. This is when the equipment's been pulled out. So basically the cost to replace those tubes is $52,898, and the executive director has $50,000 for ability to modify construction contracts. So we're able to, under Kevin's authority, authorize the contractor to proceed with the work, which consisted of a $49,880 for their subcontractor who's actually doing the work, plus $3,000 for prime contractors, so $52,000 total contract mod. We authorized the $49,880 under Kevin's authority. That allows us to proceed with the work. We're coming now to the commission for that subcontractor markup, which is allowed under the contract. So in table form, maybe a little bit easier. So the original contract's $366,500. Authorized by executive director, $49,880. Then we're requesting the $3,000 prime contractor markup. Total contract amount of $419,398. So since we've used Kevin's authority for contract mods, we're also requesting to restore his original authority, of which there's $120 remaining. And that's request in case there's any additional modifications. We don't anticipate any at this time. We did need another modification without restoring the executive director authority. We would have to stop work to come back to the commission. And we're also requesting to increase the total project cost by $52,898 due to those 2 contract modifications. So a lot going on in this commission document. Can answer any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Yes, John.
Mike, what would it have cost to replace the whole boiler?
I don't know that offhand. Kevin, do you know offhand? If you don't, that's okay. Kevin Jankowski is a project manager who's in charge of this project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Jankowski, Senior Product Manager with Tech Services. The cost to install a new boiler is beyond just the cost of the boiler itself. The building where these boilers are, there's no easy access to bring new boilers in, so the existing ones that are there actually were built in place. So when we're doing the cost estimates for new boilers, it was around $600,000 or so for the equipment itself, plus in the additional construction, and we're looking over $1 million for that work to install new boilers. We were anticipating having to cut a hole in the roof and extract all the old boiler, and then trying to build up a new boiler in there, just due to the site constraints.
Thanks, Kevin.
Sure.
Any other comment? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the modification, the contract modification. So, motion made by Krieger and seconded by Martinsek. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The next item on our agenda is file number 17-046-5, which is a Green Infrastructure Program Partnership. And I'll turn it over to Karen Sands.
Good morning, Karen Sands, Director of Planning, Research, and Sustainability. The Commission is requested to authorize the Executive Director to approve 5 projects, W96001, P22, P24, P25, P29, and P31 under the 2017 Green Infrastructure Partnership Program in a total amount not to exceed $1,215,191. This is our annual awards program that we bring to the Commission and have done so for a number of years. The green infrastructure that our partners build helps to support the 2035 vision, supports our goal of adding 12 million gallons of green infrastructure capacity over 5 years. That's in our WPDES, or Wisconsin Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, and it supports our regional green infrastructure plan. Overall, the 5 projects, and actually there are a total of 14 projects that we're awarding under this funding program this year, but the majority of them are within the ED's authority. The 5 that we're bringing to you, plus those within the ED's authority, will help to reduce stormwater runoff, holding water where it falls, as well as improving water quality throughout the region. So we received 20 applications this year. We're recommending 14 projects for funding. These are the 5 that are going to Commission today, and I'll go through them one by one. The first one is called Greenprint for Milwaukee Shoreline Phase 1, submitted by the Milwaukee County War Memorial. It's on Lincoln Memorial Drive, and over 152,000 gallons of storage capacity per storm would be provided. It would include native landscaping, porous pavement, and bioswales. The second project is called Coakley Site Renovation Project, submitted by Coakley Brothers Moving and Brothers Business Interiors on South 5th Street. It would provide 163,000 gallons. Million would be just my dream, I guess, and would include a number of strategies listed here. And one that's pretty noteworthy is a blue roof with smart drain technology, meaning it would temporarily hold water on top of the building and then gradually release it when needed and when the capacity issues downstream would have been passed already. The third project is at the Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. It's called Stormwater Wetland and Habitat Restoration Project. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's up on East Brown Deer Road, and it would provide almost 3 million gallons of capacity as well. The fourth project is called Wassergarten at the 42, and excuse my German. It's at North 8th Street, and it would include a number of strategies, including native landscaping, porous pavement, cisterns, a green roof, as well as a blue roof, just like on the Coakley Brothers site that I talked about. And this is at the Pabst area. And then the fifth, but not least project, of course, is a community-based park restoration. It's part of the Milwaukee Plays program, submitted by the City of Milwaukee and Milwaukee Plays on South 4th Street. It would include 70,000 gallons of capacity, that would be held in porous pavement, stormwater trees, rain gardens, and permeable synthetic turf, which is a new green infrastructure strategy for us that we'd like to try. The other projects are listed here, and they're in the commission document, but I don't have slides on them currently today. The total request for the 5 projects that I just presented is $1.2 million and change, with a project completion date of December 2019. And that's the requested action.
Questions from the commissioners? Yes, Yes, Commissioner Gramling.
Karen, can you remind me the dollars that we're committing to these projects are for a range of cost types, including construction, but also planning, design work, other pre-development activities? But they're reimbursable,
Yes,
and they are dependent on the projects actually being constructed
they are.
by that end date that you just cited?
This is a reimbursement program, so we don't tend to pay upfront. It's upon project, they must be completed by December 2019 as per the agreement, although on occasion, on a case-by-case basis, we do offer an extension if there are extenuating circumstances. We will give a 1 and sometimes a 2-year extension. Not typically longer than that, though. We reimburse on usually a per, there's like so for instance, a green roof would get $5 a square foot when an average green roof costs $22 a square foot. So all of these are partial payments for the green infrastructure features. They're not in, the whole thing. There's a funding formula. And then we do allow a small percentage of the money to be used for planning and design up front. But again, it's not reimbursed until the thing is built.
Okay. So we should, aside from the circumstances requiring an extension, we should expect these projects to be built by the end of 2019.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, a motion would be in order. Moved by Commissioner Bowl, seconded by Commissioner Martinsek. Question? Or, no?
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I just want to know if you had a total cost of the project. So between those 5, what do they total out, and how the $1 million is kind of leveraging the bigger picture?
The project manager, senior project manager, Chris Schultz is here. Chris, is that something you could address today? Okay.
What we can do is we could send an email and let you know, the commission as a whole, the funds that are being placed in the projects by others. We can do that
Thank you.
very quickly. Do you have it, Chris?
You have the total project costs for each of those individual projects. So, good morning, Commissioners. Chris Schultz, Senior Project Manager in Planning, Research, and Sustainability. I don't have these broken out, or I don't have the 5 that require your approval subtotaled. So maybe the best thing to do is to send out an email, but I do have the total project cost and the partner match percentage for each of the individual projects. I guess we'll go with the email. They're not in the same order as they were on the slide, and I don't want to waste your time trying to pick and choose them.
Is there a total that you could talk about?
There is.
Project cost and total leverage of the 14.
There is. The request there was about 2.4, or the total project cost for all 14 projects is roughly $7 million, of which we are awarding roughly 1.9 million to support those projects.
Okay, any other questions?
Thanks, Chris.
Seeing none, I believe the motion has been properly moved and seconded. Call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And finally, item 6. 5. Okay. File number 17-047-5, which is an amendment to a contract. Karen?
Thank you. The Commission is requested to authorize the Executive Director to execute Amendment Number 6 to contract MO3043P01, MMSD Energy and Greenhouse Gas Emissions Data Management Project with CH2M Hill, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $185,070, and to restore the Executive Director's original delegated authority for potential future amendments. A little background on this. This is a contract that is relatively old. It was awarded back in June of 2011 by the Commission. The original and current project purpose is to identify energy efficiency opportunities, including or especially increasing our renewable energy use, and also to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to track future emissions for reporting purposes. At the time this was undertaken, there was potential for a lot more with greenhouse gas and trading than exists today. That was greenhouse gases in particular were the original impetus for this project. That said, we do have very important energy and greenhouse gas emission goals related to the 2035 vision, and so that purpose is still very much alive. You are not supposed to be able to read this, just because the font is so small, but this is to show the project is very, very complex. And when we initiated it back in 2011, we thought it would be a very straightforward and simple thing. And it has since turned out to have a lot more moving parts than we had expected. This amendment is requested to extend the project completion date through the end of 2018. It would be an increase in the total contract cost, and that at the end of this, hopefully final amendment, we would be able to implement the data management system itself. The remaining project scope has to do with updating recent data in the system, so 2015 and 2016 data, evaluating from that point going forward how we can automate the data connection so that there are no more updates, that it's just monthly automatically updated, documenting a process, and then making sure that our process relates to two things. One, to when we look at different alternatives for a project, using this as a tool to inform decision makers on what are the energy and the greenhouse gas emissions implications of the different alternatives, and then also helping us track toward achieving the energy and greenhouse gas goals that we have for 2035. Now I just have a few graphics to show the kind of output we would hope to be able to provide at future commission meetings when we're talking about a project that would have energy and greenhouse gas implications. The first few slides show comparisons of 2005 and 2014 data that's in the system. So we'd be able to show trend lines. We'd be able to show by facility trends that we may have. And we could focus on, so the straight line is where we would go to meet our 2035 goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 90% and how we're tracking toward that. And this one would show, this is just another example of how we could show how we're tracking toward meeting our renewable energy goals. The straight line is the trend line, and the yellow is our actual. And this is just another example. But then looking forward, and this to me is the more important part, how could we look at how we're tracking toward our overall goals? This shows going back to 2005, how we're tracking toward our being off of fossil fuels, essentially. So this is a compilation of the 5 amendments to date and the 6th request, which is today. Most of the amendments were for time extensions only and not cost. We have had a previous cost amendment. That was amendment number 4. The original ED authority was for $50,000. With one of those amendments, we expended $40,000 of it. So if there are unforeseeable circumstances, we are requesting to restore the ED's authority and hopefully move forward with this project to completion within the next year and a half.
Questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Martinsek.
CH have any subcontractors?
Is Urban, are you able to speak to that? Okay, Urban Bougeot is the project manager on this project. He's been with this project for a long time.
Good morning, Urban Bougeot, project manager for planning, research, and sustainability. We do have a Swimby firm that was originally a part of this project since 2011. They are mainly minority and small businesses. They were realized throughout the process, and they will be realized again through the amendments that we're doing right now.
So they will continue under
They will
this?
continue under the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Any other question or comment?
Move approval.
By Commissioner Bowl,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Swan. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Last item on our agenda, there's nothing else to cover, is a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
By Commissioner Bowl,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hermes. Calling the vote, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. I would like to call to order the Policy and Finance Personnel Committee for today, Monday, May 8th, 2017. Madam Secretary, do the roll call.
Commissioner Eli is excused. Commissioner Gramling is out of the room at the present time, but here. Commissioner Perez.
Present.
Commissioner Swan.
Here.
Commissioner Manzanet.
Here.
Commissioner Hermes.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Approval of the proceedings of the regular committee meeting held on April 10th, 2017. We got a motion for approval.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Swan. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item passes and is approved. New business. Item number 6, staff has asked to have this item pulled for a later date.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So we're going to move to item number 7, 17-049-5, authorization application for Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good morning. Karen Sands, Director of Planning, Research, and Sustainability. The Commission is requested to authorize the Executive Director to submit the Respect Our Waters Nonpoint Source Educational Campaign for Greater Milwaukee Watersheds grant application on behalf of the Southeastern Wisconsin Watersheds Trust, Inc., or Sweetwater, to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and to act as their fiscal agent. Full disclosure here, I'm on the board of Sweetwater, and so remove myself from any part in decision-making typically with Sweetwater. I'm simply presenting. The scope of this grant application is to authorize the submittal of an application on behalf of Sweetwater to the Department of Natural Resources. We would simply act as a fiscal agent for Sweetwater. And the purpose of the grant is to continue public education and outreach on stormwater impacts. We did this on behalf of Sweetwater 2 to 3 years ago. It's a very similar, if not exact, set of circumstances. The project area that Sweetwater covers is the District Plus, particularly in the upper watershed of the Milwaukee, and then down south through the river watershed as well. There is no district cost share other than some staff time to administer and act as fiscal agent. This is a 2-year grant on behalf of DNR, from DNR rather. The total budget for Sweetwater's work is $185,000. The grant is $85,000 of that, and the rest of it comes from the municipalities who voluntarily choose to participate. They voluntarily choose to participate because they get credit for information and education, or what we call I&E, on their stormwater permits. And so centralizing the work in Sweetwater is thought of by the municipalities who participate as an efficiency in their I&E work.
And we're applying for this grant because we're eligible for the grant. Sweetwater is not, so it's a way to continue the education program that we support, but have them do the work.
So did we initiate the conversation with Sweetwater? Was that how we went after the grant and asked Sweetwater to be a partner?
So historically, this is going back 2 or 3 years ago, they approached us. They were under a time crunch to get the grant application in. Could we do this? We determined that yes, we could with commission approval. because I'm on the board, we tend to have conversations like this and things come up and we problem solve, and it would be hard to say where the idea came from first, but probably they asked us.
That's fine. Is this something that we've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Entertain any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
We got a motion by Commissioner Swan and appropriately seconded by Commissioner Perez. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item is passed for recommendation for the full commission. Let's move on to item number 8, 17-050-5, revision of the commission policy 1-01.07, commission chairmanship.
Good morning, Commissioners. Anna Kettlewell, Commission Secretary. Staff requests that the Commission revise Commission Policy 1-01.07, Commission Chairpersonships. The Commission Chairperson is elected annually by the Commission, but our current policy indicates that barring compelling circumstances, a Commission Chairperson shall not serve 2 terms consecutively. And in recent years, the Commission Chair has routinely been reelected to a consecutive term. So we're asking simply to modify the policy to not require finding of compelling circumstances to allow for consecutive terms for the Commission Chair. Some basic cleanup, essentially.
Okay. So anybody have any questions, concerns on that item? Seeing none.
Make a motion.
We make a motion. A motion by Commissioner Swan. Need a second?
Second.
Get a second by Commissioner Gramling. Okay. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item's passed for recommendation to the full commission. We'll go to item number 9, 17-051-5, extension of professional services agreement with Boydrick Associates for federal lobbyist services.
Good morning. The Commission is requested to authorize and to direct the Executive Director to negotiate and execute on behalf of the District an extension of contract number P2562, Federal Lobbyist Services with Boydrick and Associates in Washington, D.C. Boydrick has been helping us with the Water Resource Development Act renewal, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative discussion that was prompted this year with the incoming president, and helping us to make sure that our delegation is aware of the impacts of these various different federal actions. So they are currently under contract. We're just seeking to amend the existing contract.
Any questions, concerns? Commissioner Gramling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, I'm seeing the maximum dollar amount over the 3-year term in the document here. Can you give a sense as to whether we typically approach the maximum dollar amount, or kind of in general where we fall?
Sure. Lately, we've not approached the maximum. It's been kind of a not to exceed that we've not gotten to. It really is dependent on the activity in Washington as far as how much we use them for. So I would say overall it's been not to the extent that we've approved.
And in general, they are our lead in D.C.?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
I move for approval.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Gramling. Any a second?
Second.
Commissioner Swan, appropriately seconded. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item is approved and passed for recommendation for the full commission. Item number 10, 17-052-5, approval for the 2017 Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District Affirmative Action Plan. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good morning. I'm Candace Richards, Human Resources Manager. Jovic, like to introduce yourself, Lily.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lily Jovich. I'm the Human Resources Generalist.
So this morning, Lily is going to give you a brief overview of the district's 2017 Affirmative Action Plan, as well as our efforts to date. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
We begin with the composition of the district workforce, employee demographics by race as of December 31st, 2016. The pie chart on the left shows we were at 82% white, 8% black, 4% Hispanic, and 6% Asian. The chart on the right indicates the available labor force by race, and this information is taken from the American Community Survey data 2006-2010. The 2016 utilization analysis of minorities. At the end of 2016, the district had 217 employees. Positions are classified in 5 job groups: officials and managers, professionals, technicians, administrative support, and service maintenance. The second column indicates the total count of employees in each job group. And the third column over, minorities, shows the breakdown of minorities in each job group. We are underutilized in 2 job groups, professionals by 2 and technicians by 2. We are fully utilized in 3 job groups. This chart is the minority representation of the district workforce over the past 10 years. In 2016, we were at 18% minority representation. In 2015, we were at 18% too. There is no change. The 2016 utilization analysis of females. We were underutilized in 2 job categories: professionals by 19, technicians by 22. This chart is the female representation of the district workforce over the past 10 years. In 2016, we were at 41%. In 2015, we're at 40, so there was a 1% increase in female utilization. Female representation, excuse me. Composition of the district workforce by gender as of December 31st, 2016, shows we were at 41% female and 59% male. The pie chart on the right indicates the available labor force data by gender, which was 49% female and 51% male. This again is taken from the American Community Survey data 2006 to 2010. This information was provided by Veolia Water as of December 31st, 2016, the employee demographics by race and the employee demographics by gender. Our strategies to increase the representation and availability of minorities and females in the district's workforce is to continue to establish relationships with diverse applicant pools for vacant positions by strengthening already formed relationships with our local colleges and universities. This also includes our local technical colleges and the UWM School of Freshwater Sciences. We will continue diversity outreach efforts through job fairs, publications, websites, diversity associations, and continued alignment with RISE, the MMSD internship program, Goodwill Talent Bridge, and expanding the district's outreach program. Our 2017 highlights to date include 11 new hires, 18% minorities and 36% female, and 12 internal promotions and or transfers, 17% minorities and 42% female. We request the Commission to approve and adopt the 2017 MMSD Affirmative Action Plan, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the Commission? Commissioner Gramlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Candace, I'm sure you're not surprised that I have a couple of questions. When we took up the 2016 Affirmative Action Plan, we discussed quite a bit the nature of the background data, the data referred to as the American Community Survey, the ACS data, and the EEO data, component part of that. And we talked about ways that we might move forward towards a better data set that we could use as a more effective point of comparison, particularly when it comes to the comparison of minority representation in the regional labor pool compared to the district's minority staff population. Can you talk about what efforts have been put forth over the course of time since that conversation? Because it doesn't seem like we've found it.
It really wasn't for lack of trying.
Well, I understand that.
I share with you.
I guess I'll also add before allowing you to respond. I think the commission. I'd like to think the commission's will at that point in time was in full support of determining a better data set and allowing you to go forth in a way that might actually require additional resources to generate data that would be more useful to us. And I guess because we've not heard any updates on that front, I guess I'm worried that maybe we haven't tried as hard as we could.
Really, efforts were put out there, Commissioner, in terms of trying to establish a link with UWM. I spoke to Professor Levine on many occasions, and we talked about expanding the data set and the possibility of refining the data by zip code, and also spoke with the Department of Workforce Development on that. It's just that the margin of error with that data set would not serve us in terms of being a good market availability resource in determining the statistics for the plan. I reached out to Milwaukee County, WCTC. We have a particular peer group on diversity and inclusion, sent emails out trying to get response on, what are other market availability sources that you use. We had no takers. I contacted a couple of consultants to try to get them. Hey, we have some resources. We need your help in terms of trying to refine market availability. I just could not get better data in terms of what's out there through the census data.
The ACS data that's cited in this report is for a 5-year period that ended nearly 7 years ago.
Yes.
Is there a new 5-year data set that's become available or will become available anytime
It will be
soon?
available, and I did talk to DWD. We do have a contact there. That data won't be available and ready until 2020.
Okay. Well, that's not going to be particularly helpful for us either. I'll put that out there. I'd like to be clear that in those conversations a year ago and in follow-up conversations, I developed a very good comfort level with the practices of the agency in working to encourage minorities into the applicant pool and develop a solid level of confidence in the practices that then provide as even of a playing field as possible. So I want to make it clear that my concerns are not about the internal practices that are utilized by staff to work towards an ongoing increase in the minority employee pool here at MMSD, pardon me. But I think the data that we use as a point of comparison provides to many people a sense of safety and security, particularly when we're allowed to say that in 3 of the 5 job classifications we are not underrepresented. So I do have a problem with that because my gut check just tells me that that's really not the case. And if we're to look at certainly the district boundaries, those municipalities, as we talked about a year ago, the gap is far wider than what that table shows, and certainly far wider than what the pie chart shows as well. And unfortunately, we're left with just a gut feeling about that and not data. But I have a hard time supporting the plan, if only for that reason. And And I think I'm inclined to vote against approval of this plan, if only for that data set that exists. So, thank you.
And I understand your concerns, Commissioner.
I understand.
And because we report that we're not underrepresented in certain areas doesn't mean that we sit back and do not make any efforts in terms of ensuring
understand.
diversity throughout the district.
Thank you.
And the plan does kind of cover all the other things we are doing and accomplishing within the plan. There's a level, I share your concerns, is my point. And I guess, what can we do if we move forward with this document and make the recommendation? Is there a strategy or plan around retaining more data to kind of address the concerns of the commission?
I'll just chime in. It sounds like the commission is fine with the approaches that we're taking and with the steps that we're taking to try to ensure that we have an adequate pool. You're not overly impressed with the comparables that we have, which is what I'm understanding. I don't know what else we can do about the comparables. We talked to the state agent, unless Candace knows something. We've talked to the state. We've talked to Professor Levine, who we talked about a year ago as being someone to speak to about this issue. And we've talked to other government agencies in the region. If you have ideas, we're sure welcome to try them. But from what I'm understanding, we have tried everything that we talked about a year ago, and we've not found a better comparable set of data that has a margin of safety that is adequate for what we're looking at.
I got two questions here. So Commissioner Bowe and then Commissioner Perez.
Thank you. I'm wondering, the demographic data that was provided for gender and race and the available labor force in particular. The available labor force, did we merely go and look as a percentage and say, what's the breakdown of the district area population, i.e., if we were to take all the males, are males 51% and outweigh females 51 to 49 in terms of the overall population?
Are you referring to the market availability data?
It says available labor force.
Exactly, and that's the information that's taken from the American Communities Service survey that's done by the census. So those are the availability statistics that are given by the census survey data.
But do you have an understanding or a breakdown?
And it's by job group, which is important.
And what I'm asking is, when it indicates available labor force, does that actually correlate to an actual labor force? Or is the government saying everyone who exists, we have 51% male, 49% female, everyone can work? That's our breakdown. Or is this individuals who are in a situation where they are active, either in work, in the workforce, looking for work, physically capable to work, so on and so forth? Do you know if it goes?
It is, and it is by the various job groups,
Okay.
Officials and administrators, service maintenance, administrative professionals.
Well, that's our actuals. Our actuals, I understand, but I'm looking at the available. I just wondered
Also by availability. It is broken
is.
down by, and that it's very important that we get that data in that format for market availability so that we can compare within the district our job groups in terms of how we look in terms of the availability out there.
Okay. And then and I think that this was one of the points that Commissioner Gramling was hearkening to, the employee demographics by race. We are talking about the larger district boundaries. I'm assuming the general metropolitan multiple county area here, is that like 4-county, 5-county area? What gets utilized for that?
The employee demographics are within the district, the employee breakdown within our district.
I understand. There was a comparison, though, in which we used and indicated that the area is 82% white, whatever it was. Where did that data come from? Did that
Back
come
to the
from,
slide.
that wasn't Milwaukee
Go back to
County,
the slide.
correct? That wasn't just Milwaukee County.
It's a four-county area.
It is a four-county area.
Lily, can we go back to that slide of the breakdown? Male, female.
Sorry.
And I'm looking more on race
Okay.
into this question.
Mary's got it.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Now, that last pie chart. The available labor force, that is the four-county metro area?
Milwaukee, Ozaki, Washington, and Waukesha.
Milwaukee, Ozaki, Washington, and Waukesha. Why do we use that? That doesn't even encompass the entirety, that expands beyond the district boundaries.
It does, but the majority of our applicants have historically been within that four-county area. We're going into our first full year of lifting our residency requirements, so I expect that to expand at a future point in time, that our recruitment base is going to expand.
My point is it doesn't represent the actual boundaries of the district, first and foremost. So when we're looking at comparisons and things that we want to target, we're disproportionately saying we're doing a good job because we're close to the number of where we are in an area where we actually dilute minority representation by including areas that have a far disproportionate share of whites, even though they're not within the district. In other words, when we're looking, and I'll call these targets, when we're looking at targets, we are undervaluing minority numbers by including areas that are disproportionately white in the suburbs that aren't even in our district. Notwithstanding the fact that that's where our employees may be coming from. Employees can come from Madison if they make it to work on time on a daily basis. But when this commission sets its goals, we ought to be targeting a number that is more proportionate to the district boundary, which would actually mean an increased minority representation, rather than utilizing the whole entirety of Waukesha County going out to the far reaches of Oconomowoc or the far northern boundary of Washington, northwest boundary of Washington County.
That's exactly the issue. And we're trying to figure out how to bring it down to our service center or sewer service area. And we're looking for suggestions because we've gone to consultants, we've gone to the university, we've gone to the state, we've gone to other government entities in the region, and this is the same comparable.
Kevin, I know that our boundaries are largely drawn and excluded by watershed in some regard, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Draw off of the MSA for those counties, and then start going to the map and saying, we don't have Luxembourg, Wisconsin in our district, and pull that off. We don't have Oconomowoc in our district, pull theirs off of that whole. Start with the whole and start pulling communities on the fringe. You'll get there's probably no way to get an actual number, but you'll get a closer number. That would be just a suggestion.
We talked about doing it by zip code, which would be a good indicator. And I had mentioned earlier about the margin of error when we kind of distracted by zip code.
Yeah, and there's zip codes that actually, where communities will share. You'll never probably get an actual, but you, in all likelihood, would get closer to an actual.
Right. Commissioner Perez?
Thank you. Some of my questions were around the boundary that Alderman Bowe asked. So I have two kind of quick questions. One is, when you say you've worked with and talked with consultants, what's the expectation from the consultants?
That the best available data is the census data, and it's broken down by job group, which is the manner in which we need that information. and that's how it's collected
So the
by job groups.
so the hiring of consultants was strictly around obtaining the best data possible?
Exactly, that was the charge of the commission.
But we didn't hire, did we?
We did not hire. I mean, I talked to a couple of
okay.
consultants. I talked to UWM. I told them what our dilemma was, and just did not get anyone who felt they were able to do that
The
in
goal-
that format.
The goal would have been to hire someone to help us with those efforts. That's what the commission asked us to do a year ago. But no one felt like there was adequate information to move it forward, and we didn't want to expend dollars on a consultant if we didn't have a
And,
waiting.
and there's not
That would go
consultants
back
that
to the same data source that you don't want to see again.
there's not consultants that either knowing what's out there in the data figure out how to get to the point of fulfilling the vision or mission of the district?
Like I indicated earlier, when I spoke to our contact at DWD, they thought that by zip code was doable. But if we're willing to live with, the margin of error, I mean, that information is extractable.
I guess just in a very simplistic way, you said, we hope the commission will approve this action plan. Tell me what action's taking place, knowing, the data is difficult, that we can move forward, looking at what action is really going to take place moving forward.
I really think that what you see is a good foundation in terms of the district's efforts on affirmative action hiring for females and minorities. And one thing I had talked about earlier with Kevin and the ED team was maybe giving more regular updates on our hiring efforts throughout the year. In that we have a good base. Minority representation did not go down from last year to this year. Female representation went up. We give further updates on a quarterly basis to see what our efforts are, if our numbers are stabilizing in some areas or increasing, if we made ground in other areas that we're showing as meeting. I think we're doing a good job in terms of our efforts.
Good job, but is it an accurate representation, I guess, when it comes to
That's
the
the key
data and
question.
data sets? And if we're signing off on this proverbially, right, that this commission can honestly say that, they're comfortable and with the data points that are in this report, or should we be shifting our narrative a little bit, clearly articulating the challenges of the boundaries that, we're going above and beyond, right, and skewing our data points. So I guess that's a conundrum here.
I think that, I'm sorry, in approving the plan, it's just not one component of the representation. The plan are the efforts going forward as well. And to answer your question, Commissioner, we've shown what our efforts are and what our commitment is. So it's not just about the numbers, but what we intend to do going forward and how we utilize our internal programming to achieve the goals.
Sure. Commissioner Graham?
Thank you. So I'm leaving in a month and a half, right? And whether I'm back in some form or not, I'm not sure. So this is really for the commission to take up going forward. A couple of additional thoughts. One, the simple setup that we have here suggests that the commission, in comparing to the available labor force by race, is aiming to have the district workforce look like the MSA workforce availability, right? And if that's explicitly stated in the affirmative action plan, then I'd encourage the commission to take that up and to either affirm that that's what we're looking to accomplish through our hiring practices, or to make some other assertion about what we want the district's workforce to look like over time. So I put that out there for us. For a period of time, perhaps this was the right point of comparison, but just in the setup here, that's what we're really telling the world that we're working towards. And I don't know that that's the case, but I'll again leave that to the commission to take up and perhaps clarify as they see fit going forward. If you could, I think, go to the next slide, the tabular comparison by job classification. Similarly, what we're saying here is that we're shooting towards a target of the standard for full utilization, correct? That third column from the right, 2, 17, 14, 6, 1. Those numbers come not from our own internal decisions about what we want to achieve in those classifications, but by what the MSA, the EEO MSA data from 2006 to 2010 says we should look like. And I don't think we're fully, if that's what we're saying, I don't think we're fully embracing the role that we could be playing in really directing the hiring practices in order to achieve what we as an organization want to achieve. We're working against a standard that 7-year-old data is telling us we should be working towards. And I think perhaps if anything, going forward, if it really is the case that there aren't appropriate data, comparative data sets available that help us better understand where we're at compared to the labor force availability in a geography that the commission feels more comfortable with, maybe we just need to develop our own targets in that particular column and not stick to 7-year-old data to tell us what those numbers should be, but sit down, hire a consultant perhaps to help us figure out what those numbers should be and why. And it may or may not rest on 7-year-old data from the ACS, but rest on some other data collection and analysis process that makes us feel more comfortable about the numbers that we're using as a point of comparison. So I guess I just put that out there as something for us to think about going forward.
So do we have enough information at this point or for a recommendation of some sort at this point? Or do we want to take another action? Commissioner Bolt.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I don't have a vote on this committee. I can tell you if this was the city of Milwaukee, and it's not, this would be tabled. This would be held. And we would force the administration to come back and notwithstanding saying there's not an answer, if you try to go and you need somebody to fix something and you can't find anybody to fix it, then you find the wherewithal within to fix it. You make a determination. I think we get closer to more ideal numbers from what you're hearing from the commission. Again, I don't have a vote here, but if this is forwarded to the commission here in 2 weeks, I won't support it moving forward. And would maybe make a referral back. And I don't know if there's a timeline. I guess that would be the one question I have. If there's a absolute timeline to have this plan in place for 2017. I mean, we're already past the first quarter of 2017 as it stands. To me, sometimes having a more effective document that we can have moving forward is sometimes more ideal than just hurrying to get something in place. That probably is nothing more than largely a rehashing of the previous year's document to begin with. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Commissioner Hermes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a data-driven guy myself, and I respect my colleagues here on the commission's path towards getting better data. I'm going to kind of caution at this point and ferret out on the side of staff that I think they've made a reasonable attempt thus far with the data available, that what seems to be the same data everyone else in the region is using. And I would caution against any type of manufacturing of data, even though that would not be our intent ever. A push in that direction too far will lead to that very thing happening. And so I don't want to manufacture data here unless it's viable, real, and defendable. And I think, as much as I agree with Commissioner Gramley that this should be our focus, and I agree that it should be, we have to be careful of how we get there. And so I think the defendable position right now is to use the existing data as we now utilize it. only in defense that the same other entities that depend on this same data are utilizing it and providing it. And until we find a better data system that is defensible and defendable, I don't see us going any other direction but with a plan that uses viable data. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Kevin, do you believe that if we would hold this over, would you be able to obtain a defensible other set of data points that we could be more comfortable with? Or the option is to really review what we have in hand right now and move forward with it?
Well, we spent a year looking for that data, and we've not found it. What we can do, we do need the affirmative action plan approved. I mean, it's important for the district to have an affirmative action plan. I would suggest possibly approving the affirmative action plan, but add something to the resolution requiring staff to come back in a time period that you set, asking us to identify a path forward to find a better comparable. As Commissioner Hermy said, we can give you any data you want, but is it accurate? You can set any goal you want, but is it based on science in the area? So we can go back to the drawing board on it, and we can subtract off areas like Commissioner Bowles said, as long as you're willing to accept that there's a plus or minus 10, 15, 20% error, whatever that number is. We can do that. Or you can take these numbers that are here as the actuals and say, okay, increase them by 2% in the next 3 years. You can, Commissioner's Gramling's idea of just setting a goal is fine as well. It's just a comparable that you're concerned about. It's not the actions of the district. So whatever comparable you want us to use, if you want us to just come out with a number and say we want you to be X, Y, and Z for these different categories, that's fine. But I would not recommend spending a lot of money with a consultant to try to find numbers that we've been told aren't defensible. And we can try to come up with a plan for you, but we do need an affirmative action plan. You need to have an affirmative action plan. And if you want to approve it with a rider on the resolution, I think that's great. We can come back and do a rough GIS exercise, which is basically what you're asking for, to determine the new goals. But it'll be up to you to say whether those goals are accurate or not.
How much time would you need?
We could probably do that by July.
Do we hold this over till July, or do we make motion for the rider?
I'm also, like Commissioner Bowl, not on this committee, but I feel really strongly that I'm, supporting Commissioner Gramling's position, and that we all work in this community. We all know these numbers are really not what we're seeing on the ground. I think it's one of the reasons I'm ad nauseum talking about contractors coming in from the outside and working in the neighborhood, because I think you generate interest when people see people like themselves gainfully employed and working on some of these projects. So it's one of the concerns I have about some of the firms that come in from far outlying areas that are based, frankly, predominantly white male driven, good firms doing great work. Perhaps if we did some recruiting while that work is going on in neighborhoods with something as simple as signage, as we're the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage Commission looking for a career, call this number, whatever. I mean, I think there's more that we could do within the neighborhoods to do that. But one of the things I'm proudest of about being on this commission is that we've always been cutting edge. We've always gone beyond what's required or what's necessary or what the norm is to be better at what we do than our peers. And I think Commissioner Gramling's point that we should take a look at the standard for full utilization. If we don't have, how much is the census data broken down? So if you're looking at a county, is the census data got it by ward, or could we in fact peel off some of those outlying areas and take a look at what those numbers are?
As I had indicated earlier, there is information by zip code, but was advised by DWD that because of the error rate, we probably want to do that.
I'd like, if I were voting, I'd like to give the commission staff, another round to come back to us with some recommendations, knowing what our intent is and why, and that it's coming from a pure place, not an interest in modifying science, but an interest in getting more realistic with what our community looks like now than it did in 2010.
Commissioner Gramling.
Candace, the ACS EEO data is available at the county level too, correct? So it's available at the MSA level, 4 counties. It's available at the county level, and then it's available at the zip code level.
But again, it's
the
based
finer
on the last
geography you get,
census.
the finer geography you get, the more error there may be. Right. I don't know that the county data is, in particularly because it's old, right? It's 7 years old. I don't know that that's going to be any more helpful to us in comparing, but it certainly would give different numbers than what we have for 4 counties. I'm at a loss for recommendations also. I just don't, I think that the use of the data that we're using right now gives a false sense of success.
And that's my uncomfortable feeling about this, is just the old data, and it's just, for me, it's a hard decision because I don't know which direction to go in with this. The plan, obviously, we need a plan, but our reputation, the reputation of this commission, is relying on quality data, and right now we're dealing with 7-year-old information. I have issues with this. But is there an option that we can get better information, better data at this point, that we can have more confidence in?
Not that I know of, but
not that we know of, right?
if the commission would like, why don't we table this for a month and we'll come back with something for you.
Okay. Commissioner Perez?
Yeah, I just want to add that I don't think that data's alone. I think, in general, capturing data in the urban environment is not accurate. Anecdotally, just from doing economic development at the city and being alderman now, we see that usually, developers and brokers use a lot of these search engines and demographic data that I don't think represents the community well. We've seen consultants come in and actually take their time on commercial corridors and streets getting very accurate data from real receipts and zip codes, and it's told a completely different story of what these typical search engines do. So I don't think there's not a lot of good data about urban environments, period. I just want to put that on the table.
So we've had a lot of good conversation and the expression of concerns from both the committee and the outlying members of the commission here. If I would like to see if we could move to postpone this, not table it, but to postpone it until July.
That's fine. We just won't have an affirmative action plan in place. And if that's the commission's choice, that's fine.
Are we comfortable with that? Commissioner Gamble?
I'll make a motion to postpone action on this item.
Got a motion?
Second.
We got a second, appropriately second by Commissioner Swan. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
We got 1 nay. So the item is passed for recommendation to the full commission at that point.
For deferral
Oh, for deferral.
was it until July?
Oh.
Until July.
To
Postpone.
To postpone.
Sure.
Until further.
Yeah, until further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 11. 17-053-5, declaration of the public necessity and approval of the revised acquisition plat. We'll turn it over to staff.
Morning, Commissioners. Don Niemer, Controller. The Commission has requested to approve the revised acquisition plat for the Esbrook Dam Removal Project W10002 and authorize the Executive Director to approve minor changes to the identified parcels and the addition of new parcels where they have a minor impact on the overall project and land rights of the acquisition process. The initial acquisition plat for this project was approved by the commission back on October 24th, 2016. In your package, you should have a revised copy of the actual acquisition plat, which is a map that illustrates the properties and the property rights that we're looking to acquire. We're looking to acquire rights on two different property owners. These additional rights stem from ongoing analysis of how the dam will actually be removed and the most efficient way to take the dam down and to remove the spoils from the project site. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this request.
Any questions? Seeing none? A motion is in order.
I'll move to approve.
A motion, you need a second?
Second.
You got a second from Commissioner, it was a motion by Commissioner Gramling, seconded appropriately by Commissioner Swan. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item is passed for recommendation for the full commission. Item number 12, there will be no action on this. This requires 2/3 of affirmative vote on the commission level for adoption. It's item 17-038-4, authorizing and providing the
Recommendation would be in order.
there's no.
No, there is no action to be taken because
It's commission.
it's the
It's the
commission.
commission will take
This is for informational purposes. First of all, Mark Kaminsky, Director of Finance and Treasurer.
Were you?
We're introducing this for informational purposes, and I'll go through the document, and then I will give you an update on the bond sale progress and where we stand, and I'll tie it all together.
Right.
Okay, so the commission on Monday, May 22nd, will be requested to award the sale of $80 million of the district's general obligation sewage systems bonds, Series 2017-8 bonds, to the bidder providing the lowest true interest cost. The proceeds of the bonds will be used in 2017 and 2018 to finance portions of the capital budget for the years 2017 and 18 that are not funded with State of Wisconsin Clean Water Program loan proceeds. Approval of the attached resolution will enable the district to finance project and other expenditures over a 20-year period, and the size of the bond issue was already approved by the commission in an initial resolution adopted on December 19, 2016. The award resolution levies an irrepealable direct annual tax to pay debt service on the bonds. A 2/3 affirmative vote of the commission is requested for the approval, and at its December 19th meeting, the commission in 2016, the commission approved an initial resolution which also authorized general obligation bonds and/or notes to be issued in one or more series in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $80 million to finance portions of the district capital budget for the years 2017 and 18. The initial resolution also authorized the district officials to prepare necessary documents for the sale of the bonds, to accept bids for the bonds, and to pay the cost of the issuance of the bonds, including but not limited to bond counsel fees, financial advisory fees, printing fees, and rating agencies fees, and to perform all services necessary to complete the sale. So, especially for those commissioners that are new, what will happen is at Monday, May 22nd, as the commission meeting's being held, the finance staff, along with Robert W. Baird and bond counsel, will be receiving bids on this $80 million bond sale. At that time, based on the true interest cost and the bids submitted, staff will recommend come back downstairs with a resolution updated with the successful bidder, or recommended successful bidder, to have the commission act at that time in the sale. That's the date of the sale. We actually won't receive proceeds until June 12th, the following month. This is just authorizing sale. So there really is an action to take today because this is set up for you to know who the successful bond bidder is.
The action could be to refer this item to the full commission.
So that would be the action from the committee level. Because I was told that it was.
Could be forwarded without recommendation.
Right.
Okay, you could do that.
It would be the appropriate vote to
Yep.
take.
You could do that, but let me just also update, we did defer this from April to May. One of the reasons was we did go through our rating agency presentations. The ratings for Moody's was AA1, and from Standard & Poor's was AA+, and that was consistent with the prior ratings. We did have an issue. Fitch changed their rating methodology, and they now, for entities like the district nationally, the majority of entities, significant majority of entities like the district, use user charges to finance their capital expenditures along with paying their debt. So they issue revenue bonds. And so their methodology now was to take a look at the district as if we were issuing revenue bonds. Well, revenue bonds are more riskier than those bonds that we issue because we pledge a direct tax. And the reason they're more risky is you're subject to the revenues of your corporate, your manufacturing, your companies coming in. So normally in those situations, you maintain higher cash reserves, higher than what we have, because to offset some of the risk. So there was concern that we might be downgraded from our AAA. So they had to do a rating on us on our existing debt first, and we wanted to go through this, and we had several lengthy discussions. And after that, we did prevail. We had a new analyst, and with this new methodology, we had to ensure them that we were as good, if not better than we were in 2015, and that they had to fit our peculiarities into their national and how they rank other AAAs. And we did prevail. But that caused us to have more time needed, and that's why we delayed it from April to May, and then from actually receiving the money in June. We did prevail, and we did have a AAA, and so I'm happy to report that. So now it's just hope nothing happens in the economic world that puts turbulence into the financial markets in 2 weeks. And that's, in today's world, you just keep your fingers crossed because so many things can affect it. And hopefully we'll get a good rate and then we'll be set. But nothing, we won't know anything more until Monday, May 22nd. And then we'll come down during the meeting and wherever we are, try to schedule. But I can't even tell you the exact time I'll be back down here with the winning bid.
Okay. So it sounds like procedurally, at that point, that will be taken up by the full commission. Here today, it will be from the committee side that we're going to hopefully get a motion to forward this without recommendation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Great. Any questions or concerns on this item, number 12? Seeing none? Or Commissioner Gremlin?
I'll make a motion to forward this resolution to the commission without recommendation.
Second.
And we have a second. So we have Commissioner Gremlin with Commissioner Hermes appropriately seconding a motion to forward without recommendation. I'll call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item is passed for recommendation for full commission and review at that point. Thank you. Organization and Administration, Executive Director's
Mr.
report.
Chairman?
Nothing else.
Before we get to that,
Yes, sir.
I do have a question, and I don't know if we would need to move reconsideration, but I had a question relating to item number 10 of administration.
Your question is?
Does the existing 2016 affirmative action plan continue to carry over in place in lieu of a 2017 one being implemented? Or otherwise, I was wondering if as part of the motion that we currently have to hold the matter over, that as part of the motion, there could be a motion to extend the existing 2016 operating plan in place so that there is something from a liability or legal standpoint that exists as a document. I don't know if there's a requirement to do so or if it automatically continues.
Good question. I'll turn it over to staff to see if we get some guidance on this.
I think it's in place until we take other action. So unless it expires or unless
It's got a drop dead date to 2016.
A cutoff date. There wasn't a hard date on the document.
Okay, correct.
So I would imagine that it does follow until, right?
I'd agree, Commissioner, yeah. It stays in place.
I just wanted to make certain, in case there's some liability issue that came up with a suit over affirmative action, which, what are you drawing off of a basis here? So, thank you.
Good question, and I appreciate that. All right, so no executive director's report? All right, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Gramling and appropriately seconded by Commissioner Swan. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An MCM production.